Point in time, I'll introduce our guest speaker. He's a past Division Lieutenant Commander, Don Gordon.
Thank you. Thank you, Commander. Thank you, Donald, I don't like to take exception to anything, people in your position, but I want to say that there may be a day they attempt to not let us honor these soldiers, but as long as there are strong men in the South, that day will never come to Latta, South Carolina. Lieutenant General Tommy Franks, who led the successful invasion of Iraq, wrote an article for the National Review, and the title of that article was Army with a Draw. 47% of the ground forces that went into Iraq were from the 11 original Confederate states. And this is what Tommy Franks said in the National Review. There are no Ivy League presidents with a Southern accent. If you speak with a drawl, they look down upon you until you say, ready, aim, fire. That's the humor for the day. But you know, they do look down upon us up north, and we don't really care. But by us assembling today, more people will know the truth, and I would defy them to know the truth and look down upon our ancestors if they know the truth. Folks, our ancestors were part of the greatest army in the history of mankind. But rather than me telling you my words about those Confederates, I want to try to give you the words of men that knew them in battle, who led them and understood the character of the Confederate soldiers. And you know, it would be easy to give a great speech after a great victory, but when defeat has followed disaster, like after the disaster at Franklin and the defeat and the retreat from Nashville, Nathan Bedford Forrest was able to give an inspiring speech, and you've got to understand what was going on after Nashville. He got his troops to the south side of the Tennessee River, gathered about him in a snowstorm, not storm, but lightly falling snow. A lot of those Confederates were barefoot in the snow, December 26, 1864, and he was about to have to let his troops go home for 2 or 3 weeks to recoup, resupply, get new mounts, and he wanted them to come back. So this is what he said to them 147 years ago. Soldiers, the old campaign is ended, and your commanding general deems this an appropriate occasion to speak of the steadiness, self-denial, and patriotism with which you have borne the hardships of this past year. The marches and labors performed by you during this period will have no parallel in the history of this war. A year ago, December 23rd, 1863, there were but 3,000 of you, unorganized and undisciplined at Jackson, Tennessee, only 400 of whom were armed. You were surrounded by 15,000 of the enemy who were congratulating themselves on your certain capture. You started out with your artillery, your wagon trains, and a large number of cattle, which you have successfully brought through. During that time, you have fought and won the following battles. Battles that will enshrine your names in the hearts of your countrymen and live in history as an imperishable monument to your prowess. Jack's Creek, Espanola, Oklahoma, Somerville, Paducah, Pillow, Carter Creek, Harrisburg, Hurricane Creek, Sulphur Springs, Somerville, Paducah, Columbia, and Johnsonville. Fields upon which you won fadeless immortality. In the recent campaign into Middle Tennessee, you sustained the reputation so nobly won. For 36 days, from the time you left Florence on November 21st until the 26th of December, you were constantly engaged with the enemy, yet you bore the hunger, the hardship, and the cold incident to so arduous a campaign without murmur. To sum up your military triumphs of the past year in brief, you have fought 50 battles. You have killed or wounded 15,000 of the enemy. You have captured 2,000 horses and mules. You have captured 67 pieces of artillery. You have captured over 10,000 stands of small arms, 300 wagons, 50 ambulances. You have captured 40 blockhouses. You have destroyed 36 railroad bridges, you have destroyed 200 miles of railroad track. And in addition, you have destroyed $15 million of other property, while you were occasionally sustained by other troops who joined you in this great effort. Your regular numbers never exceeded 5,000, 2,000 of whom have been killed or wounded, while at captures you have lost about 200. If your path has been marked by the graves of patriotic heroes who have fallen by your side, it has at the same time been more plainly marked by the blood of the invader. Soldiers, you will now rest a brief time from your labors. During the respite, prepare for future action. Your commanding general is ready and willing to lead you again in the defense of the common cause. And he appeals to you by remembrance of your military triumphs, through a remembrance of your desolated homes, but above all else through a remembrance of your dead comrades who have fallen in this great struggle for liberty and independence, to be prepared to yield a ready obedience to discipline, and be prepared to buckle on your armor for the fight anew, and bring with you from home the safest armor that a soldier can have, a determination to fight so long as the enemy pollutes your soil, to fight so long as they deny your rights, to fight until independence shall be achieved. Listen not to the siren song of peace, for there can be no peace save upon your separate, independent nationality. Show to the world the superhuman and sublime spirit with which a people may be enthused when fighting for the inestimable boon of liberty. Be patient, obedient, and earnest, and the day is not far distant when you can return to your family homes and live in the full fruition of free men around the family altar. Now, I now want to try to drag up 3.5 minutes of a speech that Wade Hampton gave. And Wade Hampton was speaking September 22nd, 1866. It was the formation of the Soldiers Association in Walhalla. And he started out talking about some battlefield memories that are very stirring, but he got to a part where he was talking about the deplorable status of the graves that the Confederate soldiers were laying in. And this is what Wade Hampton said: "No pious hand collects their sacred dust. They sleep wherever the folds of the Southern Cross has waved in triumph. They find fit resting places on the fields their valor won. Your government now sets apart and consecrates great national cemeteries on your soil for those who, while invading that soil with fire and sword, were welcomed into hospitable graves. Yet the men who were fighting on and in defense of their native soil lie in unmarked or perhaps unknown graves. Their ashes are not permitted to repose in national cemeteries. Branded as traitors while living, they were not afforded the same courtesy as their foemen of Christian service in death. Therefore, it behooves us, as men who stood shoulder to shoulder with them when they were fighting for their country, the very men who they laid down their lives for, to show by all the means in our power that we appreciate the sacrifice that they made on our behalf, and we revere their memory. The association that you do here this day form has these laudable goals in view. And were these its only objectives, it should be met with cordial approval by every man, woman, and child in this state. Yet as worthy and as noble as are those objectives, it contemplates even higher and worthier ones. Those are to clothe the naked, to feed the hungry, to aid the orphan, to comfort the widow, to alleviate the suffering of all and pour balm into their bleeding wounds. God will surely bless an organization that has such laudable views in purpose. And I evoke upon it the blessings of the Almighty, and I wish you Godspeed in this holy work. I hope that organizations such as this may spring up throughout the South, Are we who are freeborn men to be so base as to admit that our country received the fate that it deserved? Shall we submit to the shame that would cling to us forever, were we to admit that we were traitors? Shall we cloak ourselves in infamous ignobility by branding as traitors the men who died for this state? Never, never, never let any fate, no matter how hard, be our lot, rather than this dishonor should be ours. Like the ancient warrior king of old, upon seeing the defeat of his brave army, saw in it the loss of everything that he held dear. Yet, though conquered, he could still exclaim with honor, "All is lost, save honor." Let us now, like that ancient warrior king, strive to save that which is more precious than all else, our honor. I now want to give you the 2.5-minute speech, if I can, that Nathan Bedford Forrest gave to his men 3 days before he was ordered to lay down his arms. And you know, at that time, there was great fear in the camp that the men would wake up and that their leaders would be gone, because the leaders couldn't tell if they'd be branded as criminals or whatever. And there was a lot of desertions going on at that time also, because the writing was on the wall. So Nathan Bedford Forrest gathered his men about him, and if we did not have a charge, this 2.5 minutes should be our charge. It is the duty of every man to stand firm at his post and true to his colors. Your past services, your gallant and heroic conduct on many victorious fields forbids the thought that you should ever ground your arms except with honor. Duty to your country, duty to yourselves, and duty to the gallant dead who have fallen in this struggle demands that every man should continue to do his whole duty. With undiminished confidence in your courage and fortitude, and with the knowledge that you will not disavow the claims of honor, manhood, and patriotism, nor disavow the claims of the women and children of this great state who have been protected for so long by your strong arms and your willing hearts, your commanding general announces his determination to stay with you, stand by you, and lead you until the end. A few more days will determine the truth or falsity of the reports now in circulation. In the meantime, let every man that is absent from his command for the purposes of mounting himself or otherwise return without delay. Be firm and unwavering. Execute promptly and fully every duty devolving upon you, and maintain untarnished the reputation that you have so nobly won. And leave the results to him who in wisdom controls and governs all things. I salute you. Compatriots, ladies, men of the South, once again, our country is at a tipping point. The South is the best hope of this nation. South Carolina is the best hope of the South. And Latta may be the best hope in South Carolina. And I challenge you to stand up for what you believe, teach the truth, and let the chips fall where they may. I salute you. God bless you for being here.